Hey guys, did you hear about the basketball prodigy who reached the league when he was just a teenager? Yeah, he was an NBA YoungBoy. YoungBoy has been one of the most requested rappers for me to cover in this series, so today it's time to finally do it and see if he's actually good or one of the worst in the game. Now, because he fires out more mixtapes than children, this is a rare instance where I've checked out 6 projects for this video to get a good feel for his music, and those are AI YoungBoy, Until Death Call My Name, Still Flexin Still Steppin, Top, Sincerely Kentrell, and 3800 Degrees. So yeah, let's go through them one by one.
Make me hit the kill switch. You know we're diamonds up in public, we'll dump it, and I put that on McDonald's.
The first project that I checked out from Mr. National Basketball Association YoungBoy was pretty good. AI YoungBoy gives me a similar vibe to like 2013 to 2014 Migos projects, where the music wasn't necessarily super polished, but it had a lot of smooth sounding production and hungry sounding rapping. YoungBoy was only 17 on this project, as we're horrendously reminded on the Age Is Just a Number track, Have You Ever?, where he asks an older woman if she's ever slept with a youngster like him. But outside of that track, it's impressive that he was rapping like this at 17. Sure, lyrically the project is very straightforward, and there's little in the way of wordplay or even all that original subject matter on this project, with YoungBoy opting for a very direct style of songwriting. But the way he was flowing over a lot of these beats had me gripped. The first song, Trappin', might not be the most energetic YoungBoy performance on the album, but he raps over that smooth-ass piano-based beat really cleanly.
My heart full of hatred, my chest full of pain. My heart full of hatred, my chest full of pain. Fall deep in the whip while we chop out the rain. We up and BR, took a break from the stage.
Then on the other end of the album, there's Dedicated, which starts off pretty average, with him flowing melodically over what sounds kind of like a Lil Skies type beat. But then in the second verse, he just kicks it up a few gears and starts spitting out rapid bars.
You can't play around, be serious, I do whatever that it takes just to get it. I ain't never listened to the critics, I put my mind to the 9, I did it.
What You Gonna Do, No Smoke, Dark Into Light, Graffiti, he just goes off over some of these beats. And I have to mention Left Hand, Right Hand. It's a simple trap banger, but man, that anthemic beat along with YoungBoy's rapping over it is hard.
Right hand, right hand, right hand. Left be working and the right coming right back.
It's got a decent mix of tracks on here. Most are about him not being afraid to shoot back if he's targeted. There's a love song, there's a breakup song, bars about fake friends and how much stuff he missed due to being in jail when he was 17. It's not rapped about in a particularly new way, but he does have some stuff to say on here. When it comes to his voice, it reminds me of Kodak Black a little bit, with his sort of melodic southern drawl, but YoungBoy is much more bearable to listen to on here than Kodak is on any project for me. I just think there's more energy in his vocals and better rapping as a whole. The mixtape has 15 songs on it, a good length I'd say for a project like this, and out of those 15, I don't think I'd say that there's one song really that's outright bad. The worst you get are just beats that are a little repetitive or songs that are just okay. Untouchable, Twilight, and Have You Ever are the only ones that I don't really care for all that much on here. A pretty good start with NBA YoungBoy for me. I just love this mid-2010s trap style of sound.
Tryna hide from the camera, I ain't going outside today. Couldn't find our tech.
After that, I jump forward to his first ever studio album, and this is a different type of project to AI YoungBoy to an extent. It feels a bit less raw and more polished, and there's an increasing focus on the melodic side of his music. Some more dimensions are added to his content and his lyrics, with songs like Preach having more emotional content, talking about YoungBoy feeling like he's alone and feeling like death is lurking around the corner. There are some lighter songs on here too though. We Poppin' is a celebration of where YoungBoy's music has taken him over this luxurious beat that has this sort of summertime vibe to it.
Chasing that money, I ain't been asleep in 3 days. Can't waste my time, I get that money cause I need it.
Astronaut Kid is a similar type of track, and I like how he generally stuck kind of closely to the whole space theme throughout the lyrics of that song.
Feel like I need some space. I'm sipping on egg and space. Lot of blue money in the bank. Oh, honey's in the case.
I also noticed that he did increase the amount of wordplay a little bit on this album compared to AI YoungBoy. Diamond Teeth Samurai, for example, which is one of my favourites, has a fair few references and similes throughout it related to other famous people and notable, infamous people. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of amazing bars throughout it, but just overall a bit of an improvement in the songwriting. As a whole, there's improvements in a few areas for sure, and the melodic tracks across this one are nice enough. And it's a consistently solid album. It only really drops off for me right towards the end, right or wrong in Public Figure or skips for me. I definitely like AI YoungBoy more because it has higher highs and more replayable songs in my opinion, but so far this has not been a bad experience.
I put up with my diamonds on TC if you need a listen. You should head on, baby girl, leave your stress.
Still flexin', still steppin'. This one I'm a bit more lukewarm on, nothing super noteworthy for me. On the positive side of things, I do think YoungBoy always brings a certain level of energy to his music. Like, there are so many rappers that I've talked about in this series and I've mentioned them either having quite a few boring songs or sometimes just sounding straight up disinterested in rapping. But with YoungBoy, there's almost always a certain level of intensity to his rapping. And he still has a good sense of how to flow with the beats on here. I guess that just kind of comes naturally with his energetic rapping style. R.I.P. Lil Fat, Knocked Off, and Long Road are good examples of this.
Tryna leave a nigga dead. What you said, we put you to sleep in your bed. On the bottom of the 9, I just put a beam, everything be infrared.
But on the negative side of things, this is his worst project that I've covered so far when it comes to his use of autotune in his melodic rapping. Until Death Call My Name did it well, this mixtape didn't on a lot of the songs. There's some stinky melodies on here. I don't know what he was doing on How You Want It, but I'm kindly requesting that he never does it again.
Tell me how you want it, baby. Tell me how you feel.
That is the worst one by far, but okay, The Hook of Batman, Call Me Late, and Bad Bad all have super underwhelming uses of autotune that don't really sound all that good. Red Eye is one of the tracks that I think does the sort of wild sing-rapping sound right, but maybe that's just because it kind of reminds me of Roddy Ricch, and I like his music a lot. There were actually a couple of songs on here where I felt like YoungBoy sounded a little bit like Roddy, just with like rougher vocals and a bit more aggressive rapping thrown into the mix. Oh, and No Understand has a cool hook with its harmonizing too. He does have a solid amount of vocal variation, but on this particular mixtape, it had pretty hit or miss results. Still Flexin' Still Steppin' is my least favorite one so far.
I'm in that riff, I got nothing but some residue on me. I'm chasing the chase of the moon. I'm in the trenches with smokers and steppins alone.
Now we get to YoungBoy's second studio album, Top, aka Please Excuse Me But I'm Taking Your Cover. It kicks off with one good and one decent sing-rapping track, both of them over guitars, because this really feels like the project where YoungBoy got absolutely obsessed with guitar strings and pianos. But for me, it really gets started with The Last Backyard and Right Foot Creep. Both of them are catchy as hell and have an interesting blend between his more intense rapping and his sing-rapping style.
Talk how they wanna kill them, they try to play me. Hustling, got pen and paper, try to take it, I'm gonna knock something off.
Top is probably the most accessible YoungBoy project I've talked about here so far when it comes to having catchy music. Not his best, but most accessible, I think. And goddamn, the intensity that you get with tracks like Dirty Stick and Dead Trolls is infectious. Give me that energy, that dog in you, bro. This album really only has two different types of tracks that it alternates between, but I'd be lying if I said a good chunk of them aren't bangers. I'm Up, Off Season, All In, Reaper's Child with those beautiful ass flutes in its second verse and its refrain, and House Arrest Things are all pretty nice too.
Fishes finna step, I know that's gonna make it better. These niggas is tight like killers, all I want with mine. I sippin' that drink, ran out of pint, I need another one. Never gonna sink that money, coming as a special one.
However, when YoungBoy drops as much music as he does, this album really does not need to be 21 songs long. Even if he didn't drop as much music as he does, this just, in general, doesn't need to be 21 tracks long. Because as you get deeper into the second half of the album, It really feels like you're just retreading the same ground that you already did earlier on the album. In my opinion, Cut Off Casey Talk, My Window, Big Bankroll with its weirdly loud vocals that kind of diminish the beat, Boom, Murder Business, and Sticks With Me, and then you have an album that's less repetitive and better to listen to. Because as it is, I refuse to believe that anyone, even YoungBoy fans, can listen to Top from start to finish without zoning out at least once. Still though, I do enjoy this album a fair bit, and it probably has the highest amount of YoungBoy songs that I'm gonna revisit the most often due to their catchiness.
I see a lover that I wanna reach. I sound what you never gonna pretend. I hear them steps coming out to me.
So this was the 5th YoungBoy project that I've heard. And this was the point where I really started to feel like his repetitive beat selection was holding him back. This album really just sounds like Top Part 2 to me. And because it's 21 tracks of stuff that's nowhere near different enough to what I just listened to for 21 tracks, Sincerely Kentrell only really functions decently as background music for me. Move aside Still Flexin Still Steppin, because Sincerely Kentrell has taken your spot as my least favourite YoungBoy project. I feel like I should care about this project because I do feel like YoungBoy is talented, and there is something admirable about his ability to drop music like there's no tomorrow and sound passionate on most of it, but this album just didn't stand a chance for me with how little of it felt fresh or exciting. Let's go through the few things that did stand out to me on here. The hook of On My Side is pretty catchy. Nowhere has some good catchy parts to it too. Rich Shit. Let me just read you my notes for Rich Shit. Oh shit, there's actually a slightly different beat on this one. Got a xylophone style melody instead of pianos or guitars. I like this one. YoungBoy actually makes you focus on the fact he's good when he switches just slightly. My Killer also gave me the same type of feeling. It felt like a little bit of a switch up in a good way.
Not on hit one, then I gotta go. Tryna leave with everything that I pay for. Nigga tryna get bang, bro. Make that 40 go bow straight to his dome.
And Life Support is an emotional track with some pretty touching lyrics here and there, and good softer vocals from YoungBoy. I still respect his flows and the somewhat versatile delivery, and this album definitely isn't bad for me. It's just a bit too much of the same.
Got an Uber, eat my bitch and cat from house arrest, some boss to know. Wanna protect on the reason that I ain't bought it yet, cause bitch I know you.
And finally, 3800 Degrees. This was a pretty good way to close things out. I saw that pen and pixel inspired cover art that calls back to classic southern rap albums and knew that I had to check this one out. If there was one project where the focus would be on YoungBoy's fiery rapping, it would be this one. In just 13 tracks, a beautiful, reasonable length. To put it simply, here YoungBoy sounds like he walked into the studio with a ticking time bomb attached to his body, and he had to finish a song before he could leave and take it off on nearly every track. Now, because of this, there's maybe a couple of songs where YoungBoy got a little bit too energized while he was rapping and sounded like he was trying to cram too many syllables into each line. The first verse of Back on My Feet and the verses of Pimpin' a Bitch come to mind.
You know that bitch no dirt on my hoe and my hoe no dirt on that nasty hoe. They got another chick that be with him, had a baby for a op, I like her on the low.
But for the majority of 3800 Degrees, it was great to hear this kind of rapping from YoungBoy. There aren't really any emotional, melodic, sing-rapping style of tracks on here at all, and I really like that about this project because it gives it its own identity and makes it feel like its own thing compared to every other project I listened to for this video. It's got a focused theme with its sound and presentation. When it comes to the individual songs, Amped Up is the best one on here and one of the best YoungBoy songs that I've heard, period. With his super intense rapping over that insane beat with those horns or trumpets or whatever it is. Won't Step On Me has 3 verses, which I swear is pretty rare for YoungBoy. I feel like he usually only has 1 verse or 2 verses, and holy shit, man. The last two verses on that song are hard as hell.
Nigga got on that meth and he be looking lean. Crush your top with the Glock, you try anything. When my grandma had left, had to jump off the shelf. Off the top with the Glock if you try proceed.
It could go as a banger. No Alarm is one of the more chill ones on here, but it's still great. More Wheezy is really solid too. He goes off on that one. Thug Nathan's Story does have a slightly more melodic sound to it, but he still flows energetically over it. And With Us is a big bopper to finish on. If you want to hear YoungBoy do some rapping, this is the project to check out. There's nothing in particular that majorly stuck out to me with the lyrics, and I think you pretty much know what the content of every track is going to be just by looking at the names of the songs on the track list. But he really does bring an impressive amount of determination in his vocals and an unrelenting flow. It's only 34 minutes long, so it's definitely worth checking it out just to see how you feel about it. And for me, it's on the better end of the projects that I checked out for this video.
Used to be broke, but now I'm rich, I'm spending every penny. Tupac secure, riding through the knob up in the Bentley.
So, after hearing all that music, it's time to talk about where YoungBoy ranks against the 32 other rappers that I've covered in this series. To start with, here's my own ranking of the projects covered in this video from best to worst. AI YoungBoy was my favourite one, pretty good one to start with, followed by 3800 Degrees because it slaps, then Until Death Call My Name, which was a pretty consistent album, then Top, which has some great songs on it, but it is a bit of a mixed bag, still Flexin Still Steppin, which isn't all that memorable, and in last place, Sincerely Kentrell, because for me personally, it's just not necessary at all. Overall, I ended up liking YoungBoy a little bit more than I thought I would. Going into this, I thought it was going to be a super painful experience just because of the sheer amount of music that I had to listen to from this man, but it was nowhere near that bad. His flow was the main highlight for me, and I also respect that there's some diversity in his voice depending on the song. I had my criticisms for sure, and it's highly unlikely that I'm going to listen to his whole discography, but I'm really not against hearing a little bit more of it. So with that in mind, I'm going to be giving NBA YoungBoy a 6 out of 10, placing him at the number 12 spot on my list. Right above Designer, sorry Designer, YoungBoy better, and below Juice WRLD. So let me know how you feel about YoungBoy's music down in the comments below, and click there on the screen to check out the last video in this series on Yeet. Shout out to the Patreon mob for their support, and a special thank you to my big bucks ballers on there, and those are Big Daddy Foe, Griffin Upchurch, Diego Victoriano, I Am Region, and Ryan Shadow 507.